What's going on? It is a Friday edition of Blind Eye Live with your host, Hunter King, Blind Eye himself. And I promise today to finish these QB rankings, and we won't revisit them until at the very least after the NFL Combine and closer to the draft. But oh my goodness. I am going to finish them today. I'm not going to go in depth on Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, Carson Strong. I will touch on them. I will lay them out. But I am going to pick up where I left off. This is not a deep quarterback class by any stretch of the imagination. I'd argue really there's like 8 draftable QBs. In my opinion. Should I say that surefire should be drafted. Everyone else is like a late round flyer, maybe not even priority, like priority free agent type or undrafted free agent type. Not in love with any quarterbacks down the board, really. There have been some guys that I really liked in past years, many of which who haven't really worked out or anything. Some of them, like say Gardner Minshew, was a 6th round pick that I had a much higher grade on and feel really good about. But I mean, so a lot of those kind of hits are luck anyway. There's a lot of reasons why Gardner Minshew went in the 6th round. There's a lot of reasons why Jacksonville didn't want to commit to him long term. There's a reason the Eagles still went with Hurts over Minshew. I mean, they traded for Minshew to be a backup and maybe push Hurts a little, but there's a reason he didn't overtake Hurts even. Although, I'd argue Philly might have been better with Minshew at quarterback, but, we're not going to get into that today. So, with that being said, we're going to jump into the quarterback market. Or these QB rankings, and I'll probably also talk a little bit about the QB market as well. And then after that, we're going to get into some news and jank. So, let's jump back into it. So, my number one guy is Kenny Pickett, based on tape. But he's got a hand size concern. And I would say that when it comes to QB needy teams, I mean, now he played in Pittsburgh weather, but that was with the college ball. The NFL ball is a little bit bigger. Otherwise, Kenny Pickett, I see shades of Joe Burrow in his game. I see shades of... What do you want, cat? Sorry, cat was talking to me. I see some shades of Joe Burrow. Burrow doesn't have like the greatest arm. I think his arm's a little better than Pickett's. But the mobility, Burrow was better at staying in the pocket than Pickett, but I think Pickett, it's just a habit he created earlier in his career that can be coached out. I actually think his ability to sense pressure is pretty good. His ability to avoid the rush is really good. And he just has he's got that ingenuity to me that Burrow has. Like, he's calm in and outside the pocket. He's calm under pressure. Really like him. He's my number one guy. Hand size is a concern. If an NFL coaching staff decides it's not that big a concern, I'm willing to roll with them on it. But there are some concerns about him playing in certain areas, like maybe... Sorry, I should have muted my mic. like maybe running Kenny Pickett, say ending up in say like, not that this is a foregone conclusion or either, or like this team doesn't even have the stuff to get him right now. They'd have to make a trade of their quarterback, but say Seattle, uh, due to rain and other weather they have, well, like rain, um, winds off the bay, stuff like that. Uh, I mentioned kind of Pittsburgh because of the weather they can see there for a bit. Like team like Detroit is in a dome, so it wouldn't be as big a deal, especially with Minnesota also playing in a dome. But road games against Chicago or Green Bay, or heck, one of those two teams. I know Chicago's not in shouldn't be in the QB market, but I'm just using it as an example. Those would be places where it'd be kind of like, I don't know. Indianapolis is in a dome, and they play, road games at Jacksonville, Tennessee, which Nashville can get some weather, but it depends on when their road game is, so that might not be that big an issue. Potentially, like if he was playing in the AFC or the NFC South, especially if he got say drafted by Atlanta or New Orleans, I think that'd be great fits for Kenny, and also his ability. He can play in any system. He could play in any system. I think he would fit in the New Orleans system really well. Although maybe not quite as seamlessly. Well, yeah, I think he could do it. I think he'd fit. I think he fit the Falcons like a glove. I think he'd be really good in a play action pass system. He was really good doing stuff like that from out from under center at Pittsburgh. His mobility. I think he'd fit really great in an offense like that. I think he'd fit, which it's an offense out of the Shanahan tree. I think he'd fit any team running that kind of system. Sam Howell's my number 2. I think some people looking at this last year's tape and some other things, and so it's like he definitely has some hurdles to overcome in terms of getting used to calling plays and and verbiage and stuff like that. I think he can get. I don't think that's going to be that big a hurdle though. Maybe get used to playing a little more under center. But if you're running an RPO attack, this guy can. Or if you're using a lot of that type of stuff, like if he's in a system like what Kansas City is running, Buffalo, what Philly did this past year, and some other teams, like he can do that. I think he could fit in Washington. Washington did draft his favorite college target in Diami Brown last year. So and do not discount that kind of ready-made chemistry. We just saw it this year in Cincinnati. I think to some degree you saw a little bit of that with Hurts and Smith, Tua and Waddle this year. But I mean, for real, I think Howell's a really high ceiling quarterback. A lot of people say Malik Willis has the highest ceiling. Maybe he does with some of his athletic traits. I'm gonna say that Sam Howell is my highest ceiling QB because I think he's more likely to reach his ceiling than Malik Willis. Because a lot of people look at Willis and they see someone who can be somewhere between Tyrod Taylor and Lamar Jackson in mobility and playmaking with his feet, has great arm talent, but I personally see Malik Willis and I think his ceiling is Tyrod Taylor. I think that is his ceiling. Maybe a little bit better. Maybe Tyrod, if Tyrod had been given the opportunity that his talents would get right now. Like if Tyrod Taylor had come like 4 or 5 years later, Like if he had been drafted somewhere in the last 5-6 drafts, I think Tyrod's career maybe looks different. But I think Malik Willis is a lot older than most project quarterbacks. He is a project quarterback. He's not coming in starting this year, and he might not. It's like I don't know if he'd be ready to start in year 2. He's already 23. You know, he's not as young as Patrick Mahomes. He's not as I think he's older than Josh Allen because I think Josh Allen was 22 when he was drafted. But I don't think he's as good as Josh Allen. I think like his completion percentage numbers are a little better, but I think he played in an offense that kept things very simple for him. And if Allen had had the same talent his second year at Wyoming as he did his first year, or should I say his last year at Wyoming as he did like the year before, he'd have had better stats than he did that year. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But Howell to me is he's my favorite quarterback prospect. I think he's got the highest ceiling. I love his arm. I love his trajectory on his deep ball. Does he have some wrinkles? Yeah, every quarterback in this class has like wrinkles or limitations. I think Howell showed this year that, you know, he had a decreased supporting cast from a talent standpoint. At wide receiver for sure. And he did have one really great wideout, but like even to me, his tight end regressed. Same tight end, he didn't play as well this year, or as consistently this year. And Howell had so much stuff turn over. He really had to change up what he did, and he adapted really well eventually. You know, that game against Virginia Tech to start the season was really rough. But that team got better as the year went on. That offense got better. And his ability to play make, like his ability with his, like the pop behind his shoulder pads and his burst in the running game and creating plays with his feet, he showed something that a lot of people didn't realize he had. And to me, if you came into the season with him as your number 1 QB, if you came into the season with him as like a top 10 player, top 15 player, I think you're doing yourself a disservice in dropping him out of that range. If you thought he was that coming into the year, you look at the struggles and realize the situation. People had unrealistic expectations for North Carolina this year in that there was so much turnover at the offensive skill positions. But that team down the stretch looked a lot better. Now, they also got kind of canned against South Carolina, but right now, like bowl games, because of the media saying they mean nothing, you know, for South Carolina, that game meant something. It really did. I think North Carolina was just trying to get past it and move on to the next season. I truly believe that. So, and Sam Howell's offensive line, outside of, was it Jordan Tucker, who's a big old offensive tackle who I really like as a developmental player, might be in my top 10 offensive tackles. We'll see. Sorry once again. I love these things. Dadgummit. I gotta get used to better microphone decorum. I'm sorry. Howell's number 2. And what I was saying about Jordan Tucker, really like him. Otherwise, I felt like their offensive line played like crap. Number 3, Carson Strong with a big medical red flag with his knee. The cadaver cartilage that has been surgically implanted in his knee. I think it's just I think it's the left knee, or in one of his knees. Might be both. I think it's one. If that doesn't take, all of this is moot because it's not going to matter. He's got amazing tape. And if he was a little more mobile, I'd have him he'd be my highest upside quarterback. Even with that, he at the very least can move the pocket or similarly to Mac Jones. Actually, I think Mac Jones has a little more agility to him. But Strong can move and move in straight lines. He manipulates the pocket pretty well. He senses pressure really well. Like he navigates the pocket, especially for a college quarterback, really, really well. I think his tape from the beginning of the year against the University against University of California, he was excellent in that game. I mean, he really fought in that game and played extremely well and helped. I mean, and he powered Nevada to a win. He has great arm talent. When his knee's good and he's planting, he's driving, he's got as good of arm talent as Malik Willis is Sam Howell. Maybe even better. I think he still has to shore up some mechanic issues. He's kind of like a javelin thrower sometimes on deep balls, and the ball can sail. Like the tip gets a little too far up, and it messes with the trajectory. That can be fixed. Like, especially in the wind. It's not as bad on, like, calm days. It's not quite as bad. But on windy days, it can be an issue. So, but for the most part, his game tape from his 2020 season, awesome. His 2020 season was, from a evaluator standpoint, like no quarterback's tape is perfect. Like everybody throws some picks. Everybody makes a decision every now and again that you want to take back, or you took a risk that maybe you shouldn't, or or because of the game situation, it's at some point you've just got to make a play, or you've got to try and make something happen. Bryce Young in the national championship game, kind of late stuff. Or sometimes before the national championship game, Stetson Bennett. Like the last couple years, Stetson Bennett has made some just, what are you doing decisions. But in a lot of times it's because if I don't try and make a play here, like this is over anyway. So, or, we're running out of time. We're running out of chances. So, Strong's tape was amazing in 2020. His 2021 tape, not as good, but I think it's because of the knee thing. That's what precipitated this knee surgery. Basically, his cartilage has been severely degraded in at least one, or in, I believe, just one of the knees. I probably ought to look that up again just to double check. But you could see as the season went along, once you got into the back part of the season, he wasn't stepping in and planting and driving into throws as much, and it was sapping him of some of his arm talent because he's got borderline like Justin Herbert arm talent. The unfortunate part is like that knee. If the cadaver tissue takes, which this is a really, like, this is a solidly productive procedure, I guess you would say. Like, there is a high chance of success on this. So, as long as his body doesn't reject that cadaver cartilage, and thank you to whoever, you know, that came from, because I hear people talked about that. It's like, don't know the circumstances, but whoever was the donor for whatever reason, you know, you're still living on, you're still helping people. That's kind of cool. I say that's kind of cool. That's really cool. So that takes, this would be huge, and I'm not sure. I've done some looking in. I still need to do some looking in on like long-term projections, but I don't know if Carson Strong, even if this cartilage takes, if he, you're going to be expecting this guy to make it to like 35 plus, but if you're talking like at the very least the life of a rookie contract, maybe a second contract, I think that's pretty safe, or seems fairly safe, if the cartilage takes. If not, he's not even, if your medical staff isn't thrilled with that risk, I probably wouldn't take it. Like, he's a big toss-up, and I think it could knock him out of the first round, and maybe even further than that. But he is a talent that at some point he is worth the risk for someone, because I think his ability to go through reads, his ability to hit throws that a number of the other quarterbacks in this draft cannot hit, and he's got a pretty good mechanical base too. Like, there's not a lot of mechanical flaws to him, so I would say, and he seems and he's extremely coachable from all reports. I would strongly encourage, or should I say, if his medicals check out, I would strongly encourage fans to be excited if your team gets him, because he has some really great traits. Now getting to where I left off yesterday, because I spent a lot longer on those guys yesterday. We're at 4-5. I have basically kind of like an identical grade on both of these guys, which is why they're like at 4-5. Matt Corral and Malik Willis. So I had to cut off my show quick yesterday. I should have just started at like 2 yesterday. I don't know why I started at 2:45 and tried to, get an hour and a half show yesterday because of what I had going on in the evening. Because the show very abruptly stopped yesterday. So Matt Corral is, I used the analogy yesterday. I'm going to flesh it out a little today. So he has the RPO capabilities of Jalen Hurts. Hurts isn't as fast as you think. He's more, he glides around, but he's not like explosive. Hurts isn't like super explosive athletically. I wouldn't be shocked if Corral ran a faster 40, to be honest. But Corral's super tough. I think Corral's initial acceleration's better than Hurts. He's got, I think he has more wiggle than Hurts too, but he's also a better passer. he can go through progressions. He's great in the RPO game. Uh, I'm 50-50 on his arm. It's really strange, um, to me. Like, kind of this weird dichotomy I have with Corral's arm. Because in the short to intermediate game, I don't know if anyone's got a better arm. Like, he gets great zip uh, in these RPO and quick game throws. But his deep ball to me doesn't match it. Because I see him, especially this year's tape, I watched a ton of what seemed like the identical throw and him miss it like by the exact same margin, like over and over again. You know, it's like a 35-yard or receivers 35 yards downfield, down the sideline, maybe 40, and the ball misses by like, you know, like a little more than like, you know, it's out of arm's reach every time. I shouldn't say every time, but like it seemed like, especially these go routes on the sideline, there were so many of them where it was just like, man, you missed him by like, if he'd stretched his arm out to full length, you missed him by a yard. Like every time. 2 yards. Like just several times. He had a completion in, I think it was the Liberty game, where the ball traveled like 50 yards. His receivers got a step. The receiver had to completely stop and kind of come back to the ball a bit. And Corral, it looked like he stepped into it and then threw his whole body around to get this ball there. And I'm like, and I want to say the ball traveled like 50, 55 yards through the air from his hand to where the receiver caught it. And the receiver did make the catch. But that throw concerned me. Like, legit concerned me about his ability to play deep. Now, one throw shouldn't be it, but I mean, like I said, with that and this other worrying, to me, it seems like to get the ball like 40 plus yards downfield, he's got to put everything into it. And if he's having to put everything into those throws aren't going to be as under control and as easily for him to place the ball. Now, I might not be studying his tape well enough on some of these, because there are other times where I see him nail, like, you know, post routes 40 yards down the field. Or, you know, 30 plus yards through the air throws, but I don't know. To be fair, I think he might have been playing with an ankle injury at that point, so that could be part of it too. Instead of, like, say, planting and driving off his back foot, he's, like, slinging his body around instead. Because that's what happened. It's like he plants, and when he goes forward, like, his right side of his body completely, like, and it comes around so fast, I think it even kind of pulled his left foot off the ground on the throw. Like, I watched that release probably 50 times. And the result, I was just like, I don't know. So there's a limitation there, but I mean, there are other quarterbacks with that limitation who have been successful. I mean, Chad Pennington couldn't throw the ball 30 yards, hardly, downfield for the most part. Like, it was everything it took for him to get the ball, like, close to 40. When he was playing in Miami, and he got them to the playoffs. Like, they won the division. Um, into I think that was the year that Matt Castle had to take over for Tom Brady, basically from the beginning of the season because Brady tore his ACL or had his ACL torn, however you want to put that. But Corral in the quick game is incredible. Like his ability in out of RPOs, um, not only with his ability to make very quick decisions and accurate throws, although he does sail a few. I mean, everybody sails a few, but I mean, he does miss a few gimme. He misses more gimme throws than you would like. His ability with his legs also in that just give added dimension too. He's great at play extension, but once again, some of that lack of arm talent to me down the field uh, sometimes comes back to bite him a little. He definitely cut down on turnovers this year, but I'm not sure if like his turnover worthy decisions really were cut down as much as the interception totals tell you. Because he easily could have like just watching his 2021 tape, his interception total could have been like in the double digits easily this year. Like that throw I talked about against Liberty, or that I believe it was against Liberty. The defender, or one of the two defensive backs, should have picked that ball off. Like, I think the coverage guys, like, just missed the ball or whatever, lost the ball in the sun, or just screwed up. Very interceptable throw. There are a number of balls that got batted, tipped up in the air and ended up not being picked off. Those are kind of, you know. But he is 6 foot, and well, I think they have him listed at 6'2". I'm gonna say he's 6'1" tops, and he's a little skinny, but he's tough. I mean, he was like 6'2", 200, or 6'2", like 205. He could probably put a little muscle on, a little meat on his bones, and not lose too much of his athleticism, agility, and might add explosion doing that. But he had some throws that hit defender, or like defenders got their hands on and didn't finish the play. Or if he'd made that throw, the same throw at the NFL level, it probably is picked off by that defender. So, and he has some really, one of the biggest red flags on his tape. I say red flags. One of the bigger, like, kind of just wonkiness things with him. He misses passes out to the flat all the time. I think it's because he makes decisions and he doesn't do things mechanically right. That's one thing is, in the RPO game, when he's throwing slants and stuff, his mechanics are usually fairly consistent. I think some of the overthrows are when maybe his brain and his arm get a little faster than his feet, and getting his body perfectly set. Like, you can take a tenth of a second there, bud. But he'll have these throws out to the flat on like screens or flats or checkdowns where it's like, there's no reason for you to miss that throw. Like, there's no reason. just step towards the guy. Don't contort your body, or there's time like to get your body set, and other times it looks like he's got everything almost perfect, and he just overthrows it. Like, I mean, it's really weird to me the amount of misses in the screen game and in the flat, and on some gimme short passes too. Like, I don't understand how there's this many of them. So that's a red flag, but I think that's probably something that can get worked out as well. Then you move on to Malik Willis. By the way, I think Matt Corral would be the perfect quarterback. Or I say perfect. I think he would be a really good fit in New Orleans. I think that fit would probably work. I don't know if there'd be a better place. I mean, without Sean Payton, it might not be quite as great, but I mean, they still have this pretty much the same offensive staff there, and Carmichael is awesome. So I think he's better than Jalen Hurts, so he probably would do better than what Hurts did in Philly, unless I'm wrong. I think Corral's better. We won't get to see him in the exact same scenario probably. So there's that. Some people think he could go to Washington. That depends. I don't think he gets drafted by Washington unless Washington trades down or Kenny Pickett's not available. Personally. Because I think Kenny Pickett would be the pick for Washington right now, maybe? I don't know. I think Washington wants a veteran quarterback, not a rookie. But I just feel like once you get outside the top 10, I think that's where the top quarterback gets taken. And I have Kenny Pickett as my number one guy. And I think his decision making, among other things, I think he could be a good fit in Washington. Personally, if Atlanta's going to draft a QB this year, I would love them to take Kenny Pickett, and then it'd be interesting to see what Washington does. I think Washington going with if Sam Howell's not going to end up with my Titans, I'd like to see him in Washington personally, because I think he'd be an upgrade on Taylor Heinicke. Anyway, Malik Willis. So there's a lot of people who have Malik Willis as their number one quarterback because he's so talented. He's so dang talented. There are a lot of incredibly physically talented quarterbacks. That does not mean they should be taken in the first round. That doesn't mean that they're potential franchise quarterbacks. Because by argument, every guy is or you could argue every guy's a potential franchise quarterback. You just got to give him a chance. A lot of people didn't think Russell Wilson was a franchise quarterback. Whoops. Nobody thought really that Derek Carr was a franchise quarterback. You might still not. But I think it's hard to argue that he's not been a borderline, like, top half of the league starter. Like, he's been an above average starter. He's just been wallowing away in Oakland. Most people didn't see Kirk Cousins as a franchise quarterback. I had him ranked much higher. I thought that 2012 quarterback class was sick nasty, by the way. Of course, that was freshman in college me, but I thought Kirk Cousins was awesome. I couldn't believe people had him as low as they had him. Goes in the 5th round, has a better career than Robert Griffin, who was drafted, who Washington, the commies. Now we gotta call them the commies. The Commanders traded 3 first-round picks, including like that year's first, to move up to number 2 to get Robert Griffin, and it turns out that Kirk Cousins was the better quarterback. Blame who you will for that. I think I'm letting, and I said earlier this week, when evaluating talent, I mean, in a lot of ways you have to go with your own gut, but I like to look and see what other people are seeing, go back to the tape and see if I'm looking at things wrong or trying to use someone else's perspective and look through that perspective at the tape at times. Because there's some guys I'm just sold on. But I try to get... I think I just gained half an inch. That felt good. I like to have multiple perspectives. Like, I like to get a different perspective from mine on things. So I personally have Malik Willis, right here with Corral, because he does have great physical tools. But mentally speaking, he's not on Matt Corral's level. He's not on Strong's level. He's not Howell's level. He's not Pickett's level. He's not Desmond Ritter's level. He's not at Bailey Zapp's level. I think to me, he's a more physically talented version of Jalen Hurts. And I'm not a huge fan of Jalen Hurts as an NFL quarterback. Now, Hurts has guided a team to the playoffs. A lot of quarterbacks have guided teams to the playoffs. Alex Smith came in and went, 5-1, 6-1 as a starter down the stretch with Washington in 2020. And they made the playoffs as a 7-9 team that won their division. I think they were 7-9 and won the NFC East. But Alex Smith looked like trash. He didn't make big mistakes, but he didn't make big plays. He barely made, I don't know if there was a wow play the entire time he was at quarterback that involved him making a throw. So, or that involved, maybe some stuff after the catch, but I mean, his stats were awful. Trent Dilfer was a highly drafted, but, a very much a bust of a quarterback for most of his career compared to, expectations and hype. Dilfer won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens doing just enough, paired with an elite run game and a historically great defense. So, it's just kind of one of those things where just because a guy's team makes the playoffs, it's a team sport. And the Eagles improved a lot last season. Their run game was really solid. And a lot of that due to Hurts. But we have seen that that kind of offense that's based around a run game with a heavy reliance on the quarterback does not last. Defenses find ways to neuter it. Defenses adjust. Robert Griffin, and part of it was in the injury, but Robert Griffin never had another rookie season or another season like his rookie season. Lamar Jackson, since winning the MVP in 2019, 2020 was good, but it wasn't as good. And his passing efficiency went down too. And then last year, I mean, it comes down to the passing. If you can't improve as a passer, if you fall off as a passer, there is no going up for that, because the rushing efficiency is pretty much guaranteed to drop the next year. So if your passing efficiency also drops significantly, it doesn't matter. Or you're toast. So, and that's not all Lamar's fault. Like, the offensive line this year was clearly a problem between Ronnie Stanley for the second straight year not being able to stay healthy. They trade away Orlando Brown. Now, they've done a great job of developing offensive linemen too, like drafting and developing offensive linemen. So I would say that people need to chill out and not panic. This is not something the Ravens have historically been poorly or done poorly at. This is the team that has produced Jonathan Ogden, Marshall Yanda, rejuvenated the career of Eugene Monroe, coaxed maybe the best play out of Mike Williams. There have been so many Mike Williamses. They got the best out of Michael Orr of anybody, I would argue. Of course, they drafted him. And Michael Orr went on to be solid elsewhere. Like, they didn't keep him around. But, they drafted and developed Kalichi Osemele. This team knows what they're doing. Oh, Ryan Jensen. They drafted and developed Ryan Jensen. So, I think people need to... And obviously, they were the team... Everybody, Orlando Brown was this elite prospect until, like, that combine. And it's like, forget the tape. Oh, my God, he looked like trash at the combine. Oh, my God, he's 6'8". He's 365 pounds. No one could move him, but his shuttle time was too slow compared to all these people who were like 50, 60 pounds lighter than he is. And have nowhere near the place, like, don't have the play strength. Oh my God, his bench press reps were bad. Sometimes you should just look at the tape. Oh yeah, that defensive end who had like 17 more bench press reps than he did. Oh, he stonewalled him every play. No matter what that guy did. Anyway, sorry for the rabbit trail there. I just think that Malik Willis is a more physically talented Jalen Hurts. who's a little more aggressive with his deep ball. To me, that's a second. And maybe I shouldn't have him tied with Matt Corral. Maybe I should just go with my gut and say this is not a first round quarterback. And I think I'm gonna make that decision right now. Which when it comes to quarterback grades, like quarterback because of value, it messes up draft boards anyway. I have my issues with Matt Corral's tape, but I have more issues with Willis's. And personally, well, Corral's younger than Willis. Corral's younger than Willis. Willis had to transfer to Liberty to get a starting opportunity. He couldn't beat out I'm trying to think. I want to say he competed against Jared Stidham at one point and lost out. He lost out to Bo Nix and he transferred. I don't think Bo Nix is, or I mean, there are things I like about Bo Nix. I don't think Bo Nix is a special quarterback. So, if he could not beat out Bo Nix, which that's not always the best indicator, or for some, you can say it's not always the best indicator, whatever. He was already there. Bo Nix was a true freshman. And he got beat. That kind of stuff does stick in my head. There's a reason that Tua Tagovailoa beat out Jalen Hurts in college. And if Tua was in the situation with all the support that Jalen Hurts is getting, rather than have been basically or basically battling a head coach that didn't believe in him the last 2 years, because Brian Flores, I think, is a psychopathic douchebag with a severe narcissism complex. Tua might be in a better position right now. You know, if Tua wasn't having or hadn't gone through 4 offensive coordinators in 2 years, maybe things would look a little different. Like, think, the Eagles changed head coaches between Hurts' rookie year and his second year. And they still had less coaching turnover than the Dolphins, who had the same head coach both years. That's wild. That's wild. And by the way, when I say narcissism complex and all that stuff, I am not a clinical psychiatrist. I'm a man who has done some of his own personal reading and research, and is maybe being a little bit hyperbolic with Flores, but I think he has problems. He has severe problems and severe accountability problems. As in, I don't think he likes being held accountable for anything. Once again, getting back to it, Willis isn't a first-round quarterback. He's not. If Jalen Hurts wasn't, I don't personally think that Willis is either. I was actually kind of shocked when Hurts went where he went in 2022 as well. Like, I thought there was a chance he goes in the second round, but I thought he was a third round. I thought he was a third round guy. So, actually, I'm pretty sure I had a similar grade on him that I had on Kellen Mond. So, once again, there's that. Not that I think that Mond and Hurts are the same player. That's not it. I just had similar, like, overall grade. And then my sixth quarterback is Desmond Ridder. And Ritter's kind of a hard one. Because Ridder has pretty good arm talent. He's got some really good tape. He's got more starts. And should I say, he's got more good tape just in volume than any of these guys. Or like positive games. Pickett struggled a lot at times. Like, Ritter's been winning a lot of games. Like, his win-loss record is awesome. But he's got this Jimmy Garoppolo, like, almost streakiness to him of, like, he has some of the... It's kind of like what I talked about Corral with some of the short games, or some of the screen and flat passes that he just... And, like, really short passes that he just misses inexplicably. Ritter's taller. He's got a better frame. A little skinny, but obviously tough. He's got really good mobility. But he doesn't sense pressure as well as some other quarterbacks in this class. He doesn't manipulate the pocket quite as well as other quarterbacks in this class. He doesn't seem quite as... Like, he can extend plays, but it doesn't seem to be something he's as dynamic at or as natural at as Pickett or Howell or Corral. Although he does scramble and keep his eyes downfield pretty well. Because that's another thing with Willis. Like, I didn't really... If I was really going to I should have broke down Willis's game more. Like, he's an accurate passer, but he makes bad decisions. He misses open guys constantly, like Willis. Like, I'm sorry, I started Ridder. I'm going to track back to Willis because I'm going to contrast these two. Willis, when he rolls out, like, he's very much a first read guy, and then he's going to run. He'll roll out, and him rolling out will create throwing windows for big plays that he has the arm talent to make. And some of them should be pretty obvious if he's even trying to pay attention. But Willis just immediately goes into I'm running mode. Ridder doesn't do that. Willis has an accurate arm on certain types of routes. Like, he's really good when a player's running linearly, everyone's linearly. When someone's running, like, parallel down the field. Willis gets in trouble a lot of times when guys are running horizontally across the field. And he doesn't do a very good job of leading receivers in those situations, which leads to bad throws and missed throws. Ridder will go from putting the ball almost in the best spot possible to having a guy wide open and putting the ball in just an awful spot. or missing the throw entirely. Like, he'll have stretches where it's like bang, 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 all this is going well, and then he'll have stretches where it's like, that was easier than every throw that you made on the last drive, and you missed it. I probably should have him higher than Willis based on my opinion of Willis. But Willis, I mean, I will say this, Willis just has amazing tools. And one reason I have Willis up with Corral right now is that I've seen what coaches have been able to do with guys like Mahomes and Allen. Because Mahomes, Tom McShay wrote a really great article it might have been as long as a month ago now. It definitely was back in January. I'm going to say I'm pretty sure it was back in January. About how Patrick Mahomes changed his quarterback evaluations. Because he had him with, a day 2 grade. I had Mahomes as my number 1 quarterback in 2017. I didn't like Mitchell Trubisky. But some of the things that I feel like people are in love with Mitchell Trubisky are the same things they're in love with Malik Willis. But, it's potentially just as easy that Trubisky... Now, my thing is, Trubisky didn't look on the field... He has the same thing that I have with Willis, and this is another comp to give Willis that I think is pretty good with Mitchell Trubisky. Trubisky's a great athlete. He's got great talent. But he was another one of those guys that he committed to Ohio State, and he was an elite high school recruit. Commits to Ohio State, couldn't hack it, transfers out. Couldn't beat out anybody there. And he goes to North Carolina, and he couldn't beat out Quincy Williams, who was like a 3-star quarterback recruit and one of the best quarterbacks in University of North Carolina history. He had to wait until Quincy Williams graduated to no NFL fanfare. By the way, like, Quincy Williams didn't get a shot, basically. And Trubisky comes in, and the offense is worse. And you can throw a bunch of reasons around that, but he didn't look impressive. And he never seemed like the kind of leader that people rally around either. And then he goes number 2 overall to the Bears. And I just didn't get it, because, like, I had Deshaun Watson ahead of him too. A lot of people had Deshaun Watson as their number 1. I had Mahomes ahead of Watson. And I loved Watson. I just really loved Mahomes. Like, that guy had Texas Tech punching so far above the weight of where that program was at there. And, it's like, people laugh about, like, oh, Texas Tech, they had Baker Mayfield and they let him go. I said, well, Oklahoma didn't just give him the starting job either. He had to earn it. He had to walk on at Oklahoma. Just like he did at Texas Tech. The reason, like, Cliff Kingsbury was totally okay with letting Baker go was because he had Patrick Mahomes. So, that being said, I think Ritter's a really... If anything, he's kind of like a superior version of Kellen Mond in a lot of ways. He's got plus athleticism. He doesn't make like one of the things with Kellen Mond like, especially as he got on and starting, like, he didn't make a ton of like back-breakingly bad decisions. It just seemed like he never made as many wow plays as you would expect. Some of that might be due to some of the talent around him on offense. If you hear Jimbo Fisher talk about, this recruiting class and how excited he is about some of the weapons he's got coming in that are going to allow them to do stuff that they haven't been able to do in his time there, I think that should speak volumes about how he feels about their overall weaponry at A&M from a just dynamic athletes standpoint. Like, they usually have one guy, but it's one guy. Like, they have Christian Kirk. They have like a Courtney Davis. This year it was it Anais Smith? I think. Or was he at Georgia? They had some receiver, but he was like hurt, I think, part of the year at A&M. So, I mean, the other comp for me would be a more athletic Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's not a bad quarterback prospect. He's not necessarily all the way there yet. I mean, there's still definitely things to fix, but Ritter might be, after Pickett, the quickest quarterback to just plug and play this year. It's him or Corral. Because I think Howell has a little bit of work. I don't think Howell's a day one starter type guy. Or I think you might be hurting him to put him day one starting. But I think Ritter very much. I'd probably put him ahead of Willis too now. Like, just really thinking it over, like talking out loud. So I guess here's my rankings for like the top 6 guys, because these are clearly the top 6. Give me Pickett 1, give me Howell 2, give me Strong 3 with a big medical red flag that probably drops him further down. Probably drops him out of the first round. Corral, Desmond Ritter, and then Malik Willis is 6th. Yeah, that kind of looks like a 6. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm being dumb. From there, you've got Bailey Zapp. Bailey Zapp is number 7 out of Western Kentucky. Had a crazy productive year this year. But there's a difference between putting up Joe Burrow numbers at LSU and putting up Joe Burrow numbers at Western Kentucky. Like, his arm talent, he doesn't have the arm talent of any of the guys ahead of him. He has some mobility, but I'd say the only person ahead of him who's less mobile is Carson Strong. Which, I mean, all those guys have really good mobility, but that was close. I'm not going to sit here and say that I am like over the moon about Zappy. A lot of people want to compare him to Gardner Minshew, and that's not a bad comp either. He's got great. He might be the fastest of anyone moving through progressions because of the offense he was in. He's great in the quick and intermediate game. Like, he gets the ball out quick, on time. He's pretty freaking accurate. But he did have some decisions this year where it's like, it's UT Martin, and you're throwing that ball into double coverage to get picked off. What are you doing? And some of his numbers definitely were impacted by. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He had the best stats of any receiver in college football. Um, but he's doing it at Western Kentucky. I I think I don't know why I'm blanking on him. I was talking about him with a friend yesterday. Uh, but Zapp's number one receiver is really, really stinking good. I think he's probably going to go in the third round. If he drops out of if he doesn't go before like the middle of the fourth round, I'm going to be shocked. Because I'm not necessarily numbers don't lie, but like he popped a lot watching Zapp's tape. And then in watching his tape too, I'm like, I really like this guy. But their level of competition definitely had an impact, and the team wasn't like great to start the year. They finished the year really strong, but Zapp is in that. He's a lot. I'd compare him to, I mean, yeah, Gardner Minshew and Case Keenum. I think this guy could have a long-term career as a backup and spot starter, but like he would have to prove he can be the guy for a season. I mean, Minshew and Keenum Minshew's had some really good games and some stretches like where the Jaguars weren't losing because Gardner Minshew was their quarterback. The Jaguars were losing because their coaching staff and organization were bad. Case Keenum had Minnesota playing awesome. He got Minnesota to a NFC Championship game. And they had an awesome record with him at quarterback. And then he goes to Denver, and Denver decides to do nothing like what Minnesota was doing with Keenum at quarterback. And Keenum didn't work out. And this year he was backing up Baker Mayfield. If I remember correctly, I think he was with the Browns. So that's Zapp. And, I've got like third. I think he could go in the third round. It's kind of the weird thing with quarterbacks. They tend to go like if you were using this grade in any other position, it'd be like a fourth, maybe fifth round guy. This guy goes in the third. Because it just takes one or two, and this is the case with any prospect, but with quarterbacks, it just takes one desperate team to really fall in love with a guy. But I'm gonna say Zapp goes late third, early fourth round. And then the only other quarterback that I have like this guy I think should be drafted grade is Chase Garbers out of the University of California. He's got really good mobility. It's more he's got longer speed. He's not like the most quick acceleration guy, and he's just kind of average at everything. Is kind of one of those things like to me he projects as like a career backup. But like there are some athletic traits there, but there just aren't a lot of other quarterbacks. Like I'd been holding on to Brock Purdy, and I had him as a drafted quarterback. he's arguably gotten worse every year he's been in college, or at the very least, he's not progressed any. His arm talent's meh, so I'm not in love with him. Tanner Morgan has really, I think, ruined his stock. He did like the opposite of Jamie Newman, where like Jamie Newman, has some hype after transfer to Georgia, decides to sit out because he doesn't want to get using COVID as an excuse to not, play and hurt his draft stock or get injured or whatever. Tanner Morgan decided to keep playing and killed his hype by just being kind of like, oh, maybe it was the receiving talent you had. Because Morgan's my number 9 QB, but I don't have him draftable. Or I don't have him as a drafted guy. Because I don't think he's coming back to Minnesota. Maybe I need to double check that and make sure. But there's kind of this group of guys like after Garbers. It's Morgan, Purdy, Cone, Jack Cone, who was at Wisconsin, transferred to Notre Dame this year. I still have some other small school quarterbacks to kind of go through. There was a guy who kind of popped at the East West Shrine Bowl. I think he's from is it Central Arkansas? No. Sorry. I think he's from it's one of the directional schools in Louisiana. He's got like just this ridiculous arm, and some mobility. And he kind of popped during like East West Shrine Bowl. I think it was the East West Shrine Bowl and not the NFLPA bowl or whatever, or NFL Players Association version of that. But yeah, I mean, there's a few other quarterbacks. I just, I think they're of no account. Like they're not. Like maybe they're a practice squad guy. Maybe somehow they carve out as like a third string quarterback somewhere for a period of time. But you don't draft third string quarterbacks. Like you you don't draft a quarterback that has like pretty much no viable starter in given situation that you come up with or scenario you come up with. If you don't see that, you don't draft him. So there are, like I said, I see Garbers as a career backup with maybe a little more upside to surprise. He's, I have 8 quarterbacks I would use a pick on. So, and usually I have more than that. Or typically I'm typically getting to like 10. You know what? I forgot one. I did forget one. Dustin Crum of Kent State. Once again, career backup. Like he and Garbers same range. Like they're basically like, 6th, 7th round guys. Like take a flyer. There's been some hype about Crum the last couple of years. Like some scouts really kind of liked him, but that seems to have cooled as well. So that being said, we are. Wow, it's already 4:28. So I promised I'd get, or in the title, I'd do some NBA stuff. It's Friday, so I'm going to. Sweet, I remembered how everything. Wait, where's my. Uh-oh. Why no camera? Why is that off the screen? That's weird. I don't know why that had moved off the screen. Okay, so we are. We're gonna look at some ESPN. Let's look at some headlines. We'll get into some NBA stuff eventually. I don't know what I'm looking at here. Is that something to do with soccer? No. Yeah, MLS. Did New York City FC win the MLS last year? Huh, that's interesting. I probably should pull up chat somewhere else while I'm looking at this. So sorry, I gotta get close to the screen to kind of read some of these. Russian star Ovechkin makes plea. No more war. Oh god, all these athletes. Y'all can say or do whatever you want. It's not gonna change what your government does. Unfortunately, you idiots. It's just like pretty much everyone with all this activism stuff or all these athletes. It's like your voices, like the public may care. The politicians only care if you're backing their play. They don't actually care what you have to say. I love how the top two headlines here are political stuff. And this is not to say like that whole Russia-Ukraine thing. I mean, do people not see this coming? Like, this was going to be a thing before Trump was elected. And then it didn't happen during Trump's presidency. Then Biden gets elected, and it happens. Weird how that works. I wonder why. But I'm not here to get political. I just hate politics in general. Ex-Bears coach Nagy back with KC as quarterback coach. Saw that coming. Oh, Eric Bieniemy is going to be the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs still, for this season at least. Sure. Joel Embiid, Harden, far different than all the stories. It's like, well, sure, maybe. Good political pandering there. Kentucky hires 49ers. Now, this is an interesting... I guess I'm just kind of looking all news. We'll get into NBA stuff after this. Sources. Let me go back over here and double check and see what I'm looking like. I think I'm out of the camera focus. Where the heck is my cursor? No, that's not. I am the worst. I'm sorry. Yep, I was off. Let's see, no. So yeah, I have to get pretty close to my screen to actually do anything, basically. So sorry to have my screen in the shot. I'm hoping to have someone come and help me figure a lot of this stuff out. Canelo Bevo, May 7th. I don't care. Canelo's just going to win that. Former Auburn and Chargers running back James dies at 53. 59? Alright, let's look at some of the stuff. Ex-Auburn San Diego Chargers running back Lionel James dies after lengthy illness at 59. Well, condolences to his family. That stinks. San Francisco 49ers quarterback coach Rich Scangarello reaches 3-year deal to be Kentucky Wildcats offensive coordinator, sources say. Well, what happened to their offensive coordinator? Did I miss something? Has agreed. 49 spent last season's 49ers quarterback coach second stint with the team after stops with the Eagles and Broncos, with whom he served as offensive coordinator in 2019. He replaces Liam Cohen, who left Kentucky after one season to become the... Okay, so this would have happened after the Super Bowl. So upon the Rams offensive coordinator getting the head coaching job in Minnesota, Cohen, who had been an assistant with the Rams upon getting the offensive coordinator job with Kentucky last year, which he really improved that offense, did an awesome job. Like, now he's back in his old post with the Rams. It's just kind of weird. He was getting to actually call plays. Obviously, Cohen would rather be in the NFL is what I'm going to guess, because he was getting to be the guy running the offense at Kentucky. He's just going to be, McVay's assistant. He's not going to be calling plays. Scangarello returns to college football for the first time since 2016, when he served as the offensive coordinator at FCS Wagner, so Football Championship Subdivision School Wagner. He also brings FCS coordinator experience from Northern Arizona and UC Davis. New York Jets quarterback coach Rob Calabrese and Los Angeles Chargers wide receivers coach Chris Beatty, a former college offensive coordinator, were among those considered for the Kentucky job. It's not the first time I've heard Beatty's name mentioned actually recently. So that's cool. All right, let's hit this NBA news. Yeah, we got the Harden stuff. I saw that one yesterday, I'm pretty sure. Knicks Rose out after minor ankle procedure. Okay, I thought that was their Leon Rose. Okay, I thought they had fired him. No, so Derrick Rose is out. Shocker. Man, that sucks. Cavs lose Rondo for 2 weeks with sprained toe. Been a number of toe injuries in the NBA recently. Kings Nuggets show solidarity with Alex Lynn in Ukraine. Once again, I still am kind of like, I don't understand why. I get the idea of using your platform to say whatever, but like Vladimir Putin or anyone in the Ukraine right now is paying attention to what two NBA teams are saying or doing before a game. We've lived in this weird media bubble, especially over here in the West, or over here in the United States, where we've had no problems. There's been no war on American soil if we're just going to say official war, since the Civil War ended in 1865. But there's really been no violent conflict in the United States, pretty much since the Civil War, except for, if you want to call uh, the the if you want to call our battles with the Indians what they were, the Indians, and I don't like, sorry, Native American tribes, the Native American tribes. That's what the proper call them. There is a country called India. That's where Indians live. There's been no major conflict here since the Civil War among the vast majority of people living here. Most of the world has not had that. Like, heck, even like our soldiers that have gone to war, the war was overseas. The war was something that people who live here didn't see. Don't see. That kind of stuff is still fresh in the minds of people in Eastern Europe because they've been dealing with conflicts and stuff like this in recent decades. Like, there were major, they don't call them wars, but in Eastern Europe, the Balkans, there was major war in the 90s. Crimea basically being taken, our media doesn't recognize it, so they don't even talk about it. Russia took the Crimean Peninsula during Obama's presidency. They had been amassing troops near the borders of the Ukraine during the end of Obama's presidency. And people can say what they want and act like Donald Trump was a asset of the Kremlin all they want. If that was the case, they would have invaded Ukraine and we would have backed them. Trump wouldn't have done anything. Instead, nothing happened during Trump's presidency. Actually, Trump started his presidency off by putting sanctions against Russia that stood his entire presidency and then were taken down by Joe Biden. Now, all of a sudden, a year later, now Biden's is re-implementing them now after he got rid of them a year ago. There were no troops amassing on the Ukrainian border until Joe Biden came into power. And guess what? All these people who are standing in solidarity with Ukraine, they voted for Joe Biden for the most part. Now, none of us want war. Believe it or not, conservatives don't like Putin either. Libertarians don't like Putin at all. But the United States electing Joe Biden as president is the reason this war is happening right now. It's the reason Ukrainian people are dying. And that their homes are threatened. That is my opinion on that, since, I'm seeing it here. Gonna try not to get political on this channel. But, it's hard not to give an opinion on what's going on right now, and it's terrifying. But, Jimmy Butler fined $25,000 for violating media access rules. Guess he didn't give an interview. Oh no. Let's see. Ooh, Zach Lowe's got a new 10 things I like and don't like. I'll have to read that later. Kendrick Perkins. What a joke. Why Perkins sees a first-round exit in the Lakers' future. First-round exit? They're going to be lucky to make the playoffs. They're going to be lucky to make the play-in. This isn't some hot take from Kendrick Perkins. This is a reality. Like, they might not make the technical first round of the playoffs because they're going to get bounced in the play-in. You know, was this Stephen A? Not ready to call Nets NBA title favorites. Me neither, but that depends. If Irving's able to play every game by then, and Simmons fits in as well as I think he can, and Durant's back healthy, they've got the pieces right now to be legit. But right now, my favorites for the title are the Suns and the Warriors. And the Bucks are my favorite in the East. Because I think they're going to get it, or they're going to get their stuff together. And I don't think the Harden and Embiid partnership is going to be that or too amazing in my opinion. Oh no. And Kirk Goldsberry is gonna. I'm okay. No, I'm not even okay with the Elam ending. Like, maybe for overtime scenarios, but no, I'm good on the Elam ending. And a 58 game regular season, I'm not cool with shrinking the season down. Like, that's stupid. But not a whole lot of big news in the NBA. So I think I'm going to cut the show there. Sorry to cut it on or get a little political on things, but you know, I guess it's my show, and I guess I can do what I want. But probably not going to be on streaming tomorrow. If I do, it's going to be a free for all. But with that being said, this has been Blind Eye Live. I am Blind Eye. I hope y'all have a great weekend, and I will see y'all Monday.